Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for joining me right here on this Hawaii News Now special live stream. I'm Dylan Ancheta in the H&N Digital Center. Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi is holding a news conference right now about new federal funding to help expand the city's fleet of all-electric buses. Let's go ahead and take you live now to Honolulu Hale.
By the way, Ben Sullivan, who's our new Deputy Director of our Office of Climate Change and Resilience, if you haven't met Ben already. And Pat Press is in the back over there. And anyway, okay. Look, this is a big week for us, and we're very excited. It's a culmination of, at least since I've been in office now, nearly 2.5 years to the date, of a lot of work on a rail project, but that's not what today's press conference is about, but we're very excited about it. But adding to that momentum, and I'm going to defer to Roger to share with you what's happened here in a very positive way. We're very excited for our city because all of what we're going to talk about moves us forward into the 21st century. And I think the responsibility we have and what we've come in here, even as a team, talking about what we had to get done was to help, even though nobody ever talked about it before, from the standpoint of what it took to become mayor, is really, quite honestly, modernizing our city and making it a great place to live and providing services and opportunities for people. So I don't think I could talk about a better transportation guy than our own Roger Morton. So I'm going to bring him up here and this is his show today. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, we're very pleased to have our federal partners here as well, because I believe yesterday it was announced by the Department of Transportation, by the Federal Transit Administration, that we had been awarded a low-no emissions bus grant in the amount of $20 million, which is a large number no matter how you look at it. And that will enable our city to continue its electrification of our public transportation fleet, our buses, ultimately our handy vans. Now, we also have, we have a plan, a citywide plan for all vehicles. Buses just happen to be probably the biggest component of all of those public work vehicles. But this will enable us to acquire additional electric vehicles that go along with the 17 electric vehicles that we already have. We're looking to do a multi-year procurement soon in the next beginning of this next fiscal year so that we can start it. This grant will also allow us to continue our development of electric charging infrastructure. Specifically, this grant, we already have funding that will allow us to put in charging facilities at our Alapai Transit Center, just over here, just behind us a little bit. But this grant will allow us to start putting in charging facilities at our Pearl City facility as well. In addition to the buses and the infrastructure, this grant will also allow us to develop a training program, a human resource development program, as we begin to transition our skilled force of technicians. When you think about it, if we go 12, 15 years into the future, we won't be having any diesel buses anymore. And so we're going to start a training program to start to transition ourselves, our processes, our workforce into dealing with this new technology. It is just something I'd like to also ask my colleague from San Francisco, Mr. Ray Tellis, the regional administrator for the Federal Transit Administration, to come up and just say some remarks. I will be happy to answer remarks at the end of the press conference, but I'll be a lone ranger on that because I think our federal partners aren't allowed to answer questions as freely in a press conference as us local guys are. So with that proviso, can I ask Ray to come up and just say some words?
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Always a privilege to be here in your presence, and I want to recognize our Deputy Regional Administrator, Amy Chang Chen. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the FTA Administrator in Washington, D.C., Nuria Fernandez, I am pleased to join you to speak briefly about this grant award and what it means to the City and County of Honolulu, the Department of Transportation Services, and the system you know as the bus, that runs on your streets here in Honolulu. So certainly she extends congratulations as you receive this $20 million to undertake an ambitious effort, leading amongst your peers the need to transition your fleet to a greener and zero emissions vehicle fleet. So that is ambitious and recognized in itself. So as Roger, you mentioned, you will receive $20 million. This was announced yesterday. You will purchase 7 electric buses, I understand, and the infrastructure at your Pearl City Bus Depot. So our support, we feel, is critical, right, to the helping the local city leaders in their goal to fully convert the bus fleet to zero emissions by 2040. That is where the ambitious aspect of this goal comes into play. It's not an easy challenge, but it's something you are gearing up to do, and this award is going to certainly help you. You talked about the workforce development, and that is certainly just as important, that you launch a comprehensive working training opportunity supported by a technical program. As you said, you're not going to need diesel mechanics in the future. You're going to need mechanics trained in electrification, in managing electric fleet. And this is where the transit workers are going to help all of us get to where we want to go as they come along for the ride, right? So that's what we want to talk about. And it's going to bring you a workforce of the future with high-tech workers contributing to maintaining a fleet that is high-tech. Most importantly, that is green. So I want to applaud you, Director Roger Morton, for taking on with your team, John and others, to implement the leadership that the mayor brings to this city with a cleaner fleet. As you alluded to, we started this program prior to the President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law with $100 million. Last year, we awarded $1.6 billion. That's with a B. This year, we awarded $1.7 billion to cities like Honolulu, where we're going to do and buy across this country. Last year, 1,700 buses. This year, same amount of buses, 1,100 of them clean buses, electric buses, clean fleets, green fleets, zero emissions. So I think that is so important as you implement to bring cleaner systems, cleaner transportation with the other things you're doing. I won't mention Friday because I'm here for this event. Certainly we are proud what you've done. The President is gearing up as we go into Infrastructure Week to continue to build and help you build these kind of systems, these kind of charging infrastructures, these kind of facilities, these kind of buses. And so it helps meet his goal that is set for zero emissions by 2050. So in that context, certainly Amy and I are pleased to be here with you as you implement these brand new buses and you run them, cleaner buses, greener buses, and a bus fleet of the future. Congratulations. My privilege to be with all of you here this afternoon. Kudos to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Let's go to Ken for a second. I probably should have said this at the introduction, but I would tell you, you know, at first glance, when you hear that you're going to work with Washington, D.C. and the FTA, and you're new to it, as I was a couple of years ago, it sounds pretty ominous in a way. But getting to know Ray Tellis and seeing how vested he was in the city of Honolulu and what he brought to it, and how knowledgeable he was along the way as we would check in with him periodically on what we're doing with the rail, and even when we visited Washington, and then even in something like this, is very consoling, because what we wanted to be able to do is be able to leverage federal dollars, wanted to be able to be in a position to, you know, use that resource to help us, and he's been nothing but a champion for us. So Ray, I thank you for your leadership and your caring and your capability, because you've really helped us a great deal. Thank you. And Amy, I look forward to getting to know you too. All right, I'll turn it back to Roger.
And I think between John and myself, we'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Also, if you have questions on sustainability, we also are privileged to have Ben here too, to answer any questions. So, any questions from anyone first?
So, 7 buses you're going to acquire, and how many charging stations?
18. A regular bus nowadays, a diesel bus, is about $895,000. An electric bus is about 1.2 million. So it's a little more expensive than a regular bus, but the experience we've had so far has been that bus excels in energy conservation and cheaper, even in Hawaii. We've been able to operate those buses at less cost per mile for fuel. And so far, so good that the maintenance of the vehicles has exceeded our expectations.
But you're getting a 7.
We're getting 7, and we're getting 18 charging stations in our Pearl City facility. That's what we have planned in the grant. When you look at our electrification program, I mean, you have to look at it over a 15-year period. 15-year period is probably $1 billion of expenditure, but we're really fortunate because on the vehicle side, our federal partners, the current program provides 85% funding for purchase of buses, and for our infrastructure needs, federal government provides 90% of the infrastructure costs. So it makes it means that we can do a lot quicker what we would not be able to do without the support of the Federal Transit Authority Administration.
So Roger, you mentioned the 15 years, and I'm trying to rack my brain to remember I know the city has its own clean transportation plan and goals. Are you saying if it's 15 years, is that from now, from 2023?
Yeah, that's roughly what the timetable would be. I mean,
And that would be to replace everything.
right. We are replacing vehicles as they reach the end of their useful life. We're not, replacing vehicles that now we have a large fleet. We have 500 vehicles, and you can easily do the math of that's about 35 vehicles a year in order to stay within that 15-year cycle, which is also for Honolulu is also a good benchmark for when we would replace vehicles.
Roger, can you state how many buses we have in our fleet and how many of them are currently electric?
We have 17 pure electric buses. And John, do you remember, I think we have 80, do you know how many hybrids?
We can get those numbers to you and get a fleet breakdown to you.
But we have a significant number of hybrid vehicles too. So I think our total electric vehicle count would be in excess of 100 vehicles.
And Roger, what is what's the distance, what's the mileage the electric buses can get?
Well, I met with my partner, Robert Yu, and we discussed this just a few days ago, and we've been pushing them to try to see how many miles that we can get out of these vehicles. So far, he told me they're up to 220 miles per day, which is about 40 or 50 miles more than the average diesel bus that we operate. Now, diesel buses could go further, but in fact, most transit buses don't go 400 miles. They only go a couple of hundred miles. Now, how do we do that? We are learning new ways to operate our fleets. So we'll send those buses out in the morning when we have rush conditions and we put more vehicles on the street. And during the middle of the day, when we have adequate sunshine, we'll be charging those vehicles for an hour and a half or so to just top them off with the energy. We'll be sending them back out on the road at the 3:30, 4 o'clock time frame, and we'll run them until they come back in, and then we'll recharge them overnight. Now, what we have agreed with our utility, and this is an important part of the equation, is that we have learned and we've agreed that we will not charge between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. That's Hawaiian Electric's peak time. It means that we don't get the peaker oil plants, which are the least efficient plants anyway. And it means that we avoid the need for additional Hawaiian Electric capital expansion. And that's reflected to us in the rate structure that they provide for us. I made the statement about how we are getting a pretty good rate from electricity. We're paying about the same rate that some of our peers in the Northwest pay for electricity. But in return, we agree not to charge during the peak times. And we have an e-bus schedule that that exempts us from the payment of demand charges, which tend to be about a third of what a typical bill is. So we're learning how to do these things operationally, and we're working with the utility and the Public Utilities Commission to try to make sure that they're reflected in incentivized rates for us.
And currently, do those buses only charge at Middle Street, or are there multiple places when you can bring them in to charge?
Currently, we just have the Middle Street facility. We will be soon constructing a facility at Alapai, and that'll be a facility where we have lots of express buses that we bring into town. After the peak hour, right now we drive them back to Pearl City. Those are ripe for just leaving here and charging them here and then sending them out again in the afternoon. So we'll be saving more when we get that done too.
But the different facilities to charge, will give you more flexibility on how to deploy them?
Yeah, our long-term plan would be to have about 8 remote charging facilities that are combined with our 2 major facilities. And I would also say that Handy Van is also in the mix. Although we don't have any electric paratransit vans right now, our plan is that by 2035 we would have converted all of our Handy Vans to electric too.
When's your hope for the Pearl City facility completion?
You know, I've learned that infrastructure is hard, and it is a permit-heavy process to put in all of these charging facilities. And so we're going to be, we're adding our charging facilities are developed by our Department of Design and Construction. They do that in cooperation with us. They're ready to start. They've already done conceptual planning. They're now doing preliminary engineering, which includes environmental reviews, which are required. They will then do detailed design, and so we're a year and a half away from breaking ground in Pearl City.
Once that breaking ground happens, 6 months, year?
I would say probably about a year and a half to 2 years once we start breaking ground. There's a tremendous amount of trenching and wiring. We've pretty much decided that in order to save parking space, we're going to have our charging cables come down from the top rather than having them on little islands that we have to construct. So that's the type of process. It's been pioneered by Seattle, and we're going to try to incorporate that design into our Pearl City.
Any other questions? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Once again, you are listening to a live press conference with the city and county over new funds that will help them get all new electric buses. It looks like Mayor Rick Blangiardi is still standing by, wondering if they're going to take any more questions from the media that is there. Let's go ahead and sit on this for just a little bit, see what he's saying. Sounds like he is a little too far from the microphones to be able to pick up on what he's saying. Some reporters there might just be getting some last-minute questions in to clarify some of the details of all of the information that we just learned. But as you heard, the city is looking forward to receiving these funds to help expand their fleet of all-electric buses. Now, of course, you heard each bus costs about $1.2 million, and they're getting money in about upwards of $20 million. So this is some good news for them. We had a team there, and they are working to recap this story, and we'll bring you the very latest on later editions of Hawaii News Now. Thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Dylan Ancheta in the H&N Digital Center. Have a great rest of your day. Aloha.